All right, brother. Thank you so much for making it out, man.
Yeah.
Episode 4. So what do you think so far? You're the pro. I know you already teased me about how I was out of focus in that first episode.
No, I just noticed it. I don't know if I tease you about it. It just happens, First episode, things don't go quite the way you want them to.
Yeah.
Technically. I mean, everything sounded and looked good other than that. Like, I was like, well, I can see his DVD collection. And I was like, So
Yeah.
behind him, yeah.
All my Marvel
Check his
stuff.
library out, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's only like the superhero stuff, because I'm really into the superhero stuff.
Yeah.
Who in America isn't, right?
Yeah.
But I was really like, I don't have some of my favorite stuff up there. I just kind of wanted to fill it out.
Yeah.
To let people know that, well, a lot of people do already know that I'm a cinemaphile. I love movies and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Just a little bit.
Yeah, just everybody out there, thank you so much. This is episode 4 of the Lions Den podcast. I'm Abi Leon, your host. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and make sure you hit the bell notification so that you can receive every time that we post a new episode. With me today, I have Carson Baker. How you doing, Carson?
I'm doing good. It's been a long week.
A long week?
Yeah.
Why?
I kind of look tired, and I am quite tired. So,
Well, we should have had our makeup artist here to touch you up.
Yeah.
I remember, actually, the only time I ever did the makeup was on episode 1, because that stuff was so hard to take off, man.
Yeah.
I was like, forget that. I'm not gonna do that.
It's so weird now without headphones on. I was telling you earlier, I was like, man, I want to put my headphones in the little thing.
Yeah.
I was like,
So
yeah, I don't have to do that though, but I was just like, I should just put them in.
just to
But
plug them in, just for
Yeah.
aesthetics.
I just like, I don't know, when I'm talking into mics, I just always have a headphone on. I'm like, when I'm running sound, I'm always like, I have my headphones like around my neck or on my head, so I can check things. I'm not a sound guy today. I'm just talking.
You're just talking
But I always see a mic, I'm like, I have my headphones on.
just
Yeah,
to hear
so-
yourself.
yeah. Yeah.
As a matter of
So-
fact, the unit that we had talked about, because
Yeah.
for those of you that don't know, Carson also does he can do spec work. He does a lot of consulting for audio gigs and things like that. We were talking about, just what's one way that we could capture the audio, and the unit that we got, just wasn't working with the headphones and things like that. I already told you I might sell it.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. I might keep it. I want to keep it because it's a really good piece of gear. But it's also an expensive piece of gear that I could probably
Yeah.
sell out pretty quickly. So
Yeah. It's a
but-
neat little piece of gear. And then I know I don't know if you told your guys, listeners, this little thing here. I know people that do podcasts like to know about the gear. So
Yeah.
check them out. These things are really cool. I'm a sound
This-
guy. I'm a kind of a geek out on that stuff. So
all right, so he's gonna start
Yeah.
tearing apart my studio here.
no, that's
I'm
good.
just
That's
kidding.
Good. Yeah.
This is called the sound. Was it Sound Electronics, right?
Yeah.
Sound-
SE. Yeah.
SEDM1. This is a dynamite stick, and
Yeah.
they're right back here. And what they do is they make these kind of microphones sound amazing. They
Yeah.
offer they up the gain by 27
Considerably.
27 decibels,
Considerably.
which is what gives some of the signature sounds, like of the SM7B, which gives it its signature sound.
Yeah.
I teased, I think it was first episode, about Joe Rogan talking about these microphones are no good for this kind of scenario.
Yeah. I remember you saying that.
Yeah, and so I'm like, no, I'm gonna make it work, and this is actually what makes it work. Those little units.
Yeah, and so the problem, not to get too geeky or nerdy on this, but these are dynamic microphones, and so he's already see, Abby just took off. It's so boring. I'm just kidding. No, what it does is dynamic microphones are great, but sometimes they have a really low output, and these just blow up your output to a much higher usable level.
Yeah, your voice.
And and it's but you have to have phantom power, and that's for, if you don't know what that is, that's the plus 48 volts or plus 48 V on your mixer.
Yeah,
camera.
So right now we're actually not going directly into this mixer board that some of you might see maybe on camera 3. We're not on this one, but they go directly into the phantom powered cameras that we have.
Yeah.
And at some point in the future, maybe a standalone video, maybe not part of the podcast, I'll kind of do like a little studio tour
Yeah.
of kind of my artifacts, the Abi artifacts, and
Yeah.
and
Pretty things on
and
the
the
wall.
different and the different rigs that we have here, the laptop and everything like that. I don't know. Some people want to know. Some people want to know.
Yeah, they do. They
So-
do. Yeah, I let people do podcast family members. They always want to know what the gear is. They're
Um,
curious.
So you spec out a lot of gear, and
Mm-hmm.
you work at a nonprofit right now
Yeah.
as their lead audio engineer.
Yeah.
And do you spec out all the gear for them?
Yeah, no, we well, there's stuff that was already there. Some of the stuff I inherited.
Uh-huh.
And so, but the other stuff that we've added since then, I've had to. It's really about looking at the situation, reading the situation, and go, well, what works best in this area,
Mhm.
and what do we have to spend?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a marriage between function and price, and then sometimes looks, depending on what it is. So,
Yeah, I
but
think
yeah,
it's
that's what it is.
I think and one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, this is just part of the reason, was because of your expertise.
Mhm.
You went to school for audio,
Yeah.
right? And what school was that?
That's the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences in Arizona. I know that's a really big mouthful.
Bam! But that's
Yeah.
I remember when I was living in Arizona. I joined the
Yeah.
army in the late '90s, but I knew about it then.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a what 2-year waiting list to get in there.
No, at the
Not so long.
time, I think I went right out of high school, so it was like 2005 for me.
Okay.
So it wasn't too bad getting in. They had some good facilities. They just expanded to the second campus. There's one in
Uh-huh.
Mesa and one in Tempe. I don't know about now. They might have more.
Yeah.
But they had some great gear. If you're looking to go for audio school, that place just has tons of stuff, kind of like Full Sail in the sense they have. I mean,
I went to full.
yeah,
Sail.
yeah. So you went
Yeah.
Full Sail, but yeah, they've got tons of gear. They haven't really skimped on that in any way.
Let me ask you
So,
this, because I mean,
yeah.
it does not fail that I get online into some forum
Mm.
and they're always like school versus no school,
Yeah.
or I guess you could say school versus hard knocks,
Yeah.
or whatever. Um, I have an opinion. What's your opinion about the importance of a structured organization that teaches the material?
It's for like audio and video.
Just in your perspective, let's say your field, audio.
Yeah, audio.
Did it give you a
So
heads up? Did you get a heads up?
yeah,
Did you put you in front of the line kind of thing, or?
no, it doesn't put you to the front of the line. So it doesn't make you a good sound engineer, but it gives you the building blocks to give it. So this is the best way I can explain it. Say you were gonna go to climb a mountain. So you had two choices. You could do it with bare feet and bare hands, and nothing on your back, no supplies, just a shirt and your back.
Maybe
some
find supplies
shorts.
on the way up. kind of
Yeah,
thing.
something scavenger. Just
Yeah.
anyways, it's gonna take you a while. And definitely not prepared for it. I mean, will you make it? There's a good chance you might. Or I mean, I won't say a good chance, a chance you might make it up the mountain.
Uh-huh.
And then school, kind of for audio, is like let's give you some hiking boots and some gear and some supplies and stuff
Mhm.
like that,
Mhm.
and you're gonna be better prepared to climb that mountain now than you
Yeah.
were before. So what ends up happening is you'll see the kids that go to school like me. I went when I was like 18, 19 years old for audio. You're gonna run past people that have been doing it for like 5 or 10 years. You're gonna walk right by them in like a year or two.
Yeah.
Now beyond that, there are definitely an artistic side to it, and that part nobody can really teach you.
That's the
You
hard
just
knocks part.
Yeah, that's the part where you kind of have to figure it out for yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because and I know a lot of sound guys that know a lot about the gear, but they don't have an ear. So they can set up a system. I can possibly even tune it and do everything else they have to do. But when they mix, it's just like what happened.
Yeah.
It's not that they're incompetent in the technical sense. They just don't quite get the art side of it down. And over the years, I've been doing like for over a decade now. I just feel like I just got to the point where I can really make something happen. And I don't know, you might disagree or agree with me on that in some ways, but I mean, since I've been where I've been working for so long, I've made an improvement every year in the way things sound. And my technical expertise necessarily hasn't got a whole lot higher. It's more like I just
There's
really
only
figured
so
out the
much.
art of it.
There's only so much signal flow that you
Yeah.
can learn.
Yeah.
Right. EQ, compressing, limiting,
Yeah.
adaptive limiting, different types of
Yeah.
parametric EQs, and multi. There's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of little mini jargon that you can learn along
Yeah.
the way, but essentially it's the same thing, right?
Put it to you this way: I can like say for an instrument, acoustic guitar.
Mhm.
If I said, okay, here's how a guitar is built. This is how it functions. These are the strings. This is what they do. This is the fretboard. This is how you tune it. Yada 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 yada. But you can't play it. You know about the guitar. You can take care of the guitar. You can change the strings. I mean, you can do all kinds of things to it. But playing it's a whole another thing. Knowing about the guitar and how it works and how it functions and what it does is one thing, and then playing it's another.
Right.
That's how I describe it. So you
Yeah.
get the function. Like I understand what this guitar does and how it works. Now I just have to learn how to play it. So yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
the kind of the overarching theme of this episode is kind of like finding your hustle.
Yeah.
Find your hustle. And so, um, you offer you offer like, you have a group, you have a Facebook group, and then do you have a website, or do you have like a some sort of course that people can find you at or anything
Yeah,
like
as far as Facebook goes, my Facebook business name is, and that's long too, but it
that?
just kind of encompasses everything I like to do, or I have other people that know how to do that. I'll rope in as subcontractors, but it's called Nexus Integrated Systems and Services.
Uh-huh.
So I just kind of where I use that name because it kind of brings everything together, arts and technology and people and stuff together to make something happen. So that's kind
Okay.
of why I named it that. And then as far as sound goes, if you're local, especially, it's called Knobs and Faders. So Knobs and Faders is for sound
Local
engineers.
to the Northeast San Antonio area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just around here.
And
So
that's like, if I remember correctly, you offered a class, didn't you?
yeah, it's
Is that
called the Sonic Basic course, and so it's not very expensive. Sometimes I'll run it and I won't charge very much. It just
right?
depends. But if well, I
We'll
have
keep a
people
we'll keep
people people hire me to come out and just teach their folks. So
Okay.
yeah.
And so, guys that are listening, if you have like an organization or a company
Mhm.
that needs audio services, you'll find the link in the description below, and we'll make sure that we get you guys connected,
Yeah,
because I'm telling you what, the audio that this guy produces, and I'm just gonna shout out to you, is some of the cleanest, best mixed audio. And I've been doing. I told you I've said it. I've been doing audio for 25 years,
yeah.
and so I haven't done it really a whole lot since about 2009. But I mean, the stuff you put out, man, is really, really high class, high quality.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
and that's all. That all points to your hustle. Something that I learned a long time ago is like, let people flourish in their lane. Is to let people flourish in their lane. When I was at Bible college, there was a gentleman named Ben,
Mhm.
and Ben just had a knack for um, just flourishing in everything that he did. You know, um, some people might call it the favor of God or the Holy Spirit or whatever.
Yeah,
But Ben just always did Ben. He didn't concern himself with, okay, what's Abby doing, or what's so and so doing, what's so and so doing.
yeah.
He just said, okay, what's the best way that I can figure this out using the tool set that I have. And that's something that you do too. Like, you're not. I mean, we as gearheads sometimes do complain. Oh, I wish I had X, Y, and Z gear.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, um, we do the best we can with what we have.
And going on that track, these monitors I used to use, and then I know you've got them here at the studio now.
Uh huh.
And so these, I cut my teeth studio wise on these little KRKs.
Uh huh.
And it wasn't until I really figured out what I was doing that I ended up buying another pair of monitors. I was like, I will actually now benefit from having nicer monitors. I now understand like how to set up my listening position in a control room. I understand how to tune it. This stuff is making sense to me. I can make repeatable results.
Yeah.
And I was like, now it's time for better gear because now I understand how to use it.
Uh huh.
And that's what I'll tell people first. Like, well, I need something else. Like, well, see if you can maximize what you have, understand it, and then if you really like, you basically the gear starts to hold you back. Like, not that these are bad monitors, but I needed more clarity in some of the top end and stuff. So I got a pair of Atom Audio T7Vs, which are not terribly more expensive, but they're much more accurate and in full. And I was able to crank out better mixes
Hmm.
because I had better tools in a less amount of time. And it's not that these are bad monitors, but if I would have got them say a year before that, I would have had the same, you know, same sort of qualities I had before, no matter what I had. So
And I think that's kind of the underlying core
yeah,
of the conversation that I wanted to have with you, because a lot of people that are out there, and to some degree me,
yeah,
complain about not having the tools to do what they need to do in life, or whatever.
yeah,
And it's the adage is old, and people say, well, work with what you got, work with what you got, right?
yeah,
um but well, without getting into nitty gritty politics of the types of governments that are out there,
yeah,
I shared a podcast with you to listen to or to skim through,
yeah,
and I was pretty much just the dude changed my mind
mm,
about just the type of systems and governments that are out there,
yeah,
because everybody says, oh, well, the government's holding me down, or I don't have X, Y, and Z, or I wasn't born into this scenario. But if you have the drive, you know eventually you get the tools.
Yeah.
Eventually you get the tools if you have the drive to learn. Now, this conversation isn't necessarily about social injustice or anything like that. I
Yeah.
don't want to go into that arena. I actually have another guest that's coming in for that,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about the disparity between you know where you were born and
That
to
sort of
what
thing.
fam.
Yeah.
That's a whole different conversation. But generally speaking, um, our I would say that our government is set up. I mean, even this platform, YouTube,
Yeah.
or all the podcasts, is set up that if you hustle right, you can make it. You
Yeah.
know, um,
But obviously there's no guarantees, but there's a better chance you will for sure. You
yeah,
know, and then the comment you made about governments and things like that. Now, if you were belt or like not belt dealt, dealt a bad hand in a sense, or you've been told you've been dealt a bad hand, um, it's more like I think what was the guy's name? The podcast you sent me.
Naval Ravikant.
Yeah, that's the guy. I kind of skimmed that one just because I was doing lots of things in
Sure.
between, just trying to get some sleep too. But anyways, I've been listing my house for sale, all kinds of things this week. And anyway, um, he strikes me as a person that would if he if he knew about those things, he's like, hey, I'll take note of that. Like
Mhm.
I'm not going to ignore the fact that this is happening or ignore the fact that I have these disadvantages or perceived disadvantages, but I'll just take note of that and I'll just adjust.
Yeah,
And I feel like that's the kind of person he is. Like, okay, well, you're such and such, and you were born here, and yada yada yada. Okay, that's good to know, but that's not going to stop me from trying
yeah.
or
Hey,
attempting.
do me a favor.
So
Turn a little bit this
yeah,
way
sure,
so that people can see
yeah.
your beautiful mug.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I have a face. I have a face for radio, so I
Yeah, like
apologize.
they've been seeing the Rembrandt version of you,
Yeah,
just like this. Yeah, that dude is smart. I'll post a link to that podcast.
yeah. He's
The
intelligent, very
dude
intelligent.
was yeah.
I have a word for him or a phrase.
Phrase from him like that.
No, just
That
like just when I was looking at him and I was like, he's a 3-dimensional thinker.
yeah,
That's what I was like. This guy thinks in 3 dimensions. He doesn't get caught up on like one
one
fact
side
or
or
one thing. He's like, okay, that's interesting. I wonder, how this plays into the rest of that and how I can get around that or what I can do to solve that problem.
he wa-
You
he
know, so
was he was so eye opening for me
yeah,
because and this is another reason obviously you're an expert in your field, audio.
yeah,
But something that struck me, and I've told you this maybe once or twice before in our conversations when we were working together,
hmm
that you have a knack for nailing, engaging like societal changes. And again, this isn't
oh,
that conversation,
right,
but I just always thought I always admired how you were able to gauge the political spectrum and say, you know what, this is coming up next, and this, here's what people are going to be clamoring for. And at the end of this podcast, I want you to tell me what your next prediction is. If it's
okay.
if,
I'll put my foil hat on. Hey,
yeah,
dude, you should get a foil hat in here. So when people's gonna make a foil hat statement, they can
yeah,
just put it
just
on. Like,
pop it
here's my
on.
foil hat statement, and I'm gonna
Yeah,
just take it off when you're done.
I mean, it was just really it was almost it's almost eerie because I look back and we had
yeah.
that conversation. He said, "Oh, this is coming up next. This is good. This is what I
You're
see."
like, whatever.
And
Dude.
sure enough, I was like, "Yeah, I was. I'm like, okay, this dude's
I
thinking
was
a
like,
little."
okay, whatever.
This dude was wearing a tin hat, and I didn't think much of it. And you said it, and I
Yeah,
was like, "Oh snap!" And then after the events and actually the ongoing events have transpired, I'm like,
yeah.
dude was spot on. And so I've always admired your knack for gauging societal changes.
And all that is too. Like when you talk about intelligence, I'm not saying that you didn't spot that you're not intelligent or something. I'm not insinuating that. What I'm saying is intelligence
Dude,
is like
I need a
no,
dunce
no,
cap now.
but no, you don't need a dunce cap. Yeah, we should have a dunce cap in here too, and a foil hat.
Yeah, tinfoil hat and a
But
dunce cap.
part of being, and this is a good book to read too. If you read what's it called? Thou Shalt Prosper by Rabbi Daniel Lapin. He talks a lot about a whole lot of things actually. It has a lot to do with finances because Dave Ramsey endorses him. But I got his book on Audible and just listened to it. It's like, I don't know, it's like 10 hours long. But it's really good. It has lots of life lessons in there. And it also has a ton about just managing yourself, managing money, and all those other things. But one of the things he talked about was prediction. His prediction is is difficult because it's like, he said it was like staring into a dark room and seeing what's in the corner from the outside on a bright day. Like that's how difficult it is to predict. And so people that can spot patterns, like this, it's kind of defining intelligence. I'm looking at your brain here on this thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, cool graphics. It's being able to spot patterns, recall information, and predict.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you get a little bit of a kind of a mixture of that. Like I'm not really great at recalling information, but I seem to be pretty adept at spotting patterns
Uh-huh.
and making predictions. That doesn't mean that I'm more intelligent than someone else. It just means that I've engaged that side of my mind more. So I have a hobby of thinking. People, what's your hobby? It's like I don't really have a hobby. I mean, audio, but I do that. You know, I love audio, but part of my hobby is just sitting there just thinking about stuff. Sometimes it's like, oh, well, that's interesting. I wonder how that's going to turn out. And I'll sit there and think about it for a while.
I would venture to
So-
say that people don't
Yeah.
think. You know, we're in a society of hot takes.
Yeah.
We're in a culture of hot takes.
Yeah.
And people don't take the time to just delete that post that they're about to make,
Yeah.
or that comment that they want to retort with. They
Yeah.
don't think. I mean, on the daily, probably at least a dozen comments that I want to make that I retract.
Yeah.
And if you guys follow me on social media, you know that I put one every couple days, and so that's a huge deal
And
for
that's
me.
not a bad thing because I think you're realizing that some of the stuff you might post, and I've done that too. I've deleted posts. It's like that's not productive.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's me sharing what's on my mind. Like Facebook asks, "What's on your mind?"
Yeah.
You know, it's like, let me, what's on my mind? I'll tell you what's on my mind. You know, and it's like, but then you'll read it. It's like that's not productive. Who's going to benefit from that? You know.
Let me ask you this
So,
on that note,
yeah.
because I remember when we first met back
Yeah.
in 2012, you had nothing to do with it. You had
I
nothing to
hated
do.
Facebook.
You had
Oh,
well, not
gosh.
just Facebook, just social media in general.
I didn't even want a smartphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you had nothing. So what turned the tide for you as far as social media is concerned?
Okay, a couple things. For some reason, on every social media platform that was either Instagram or Facebook or whatever that was out there.
Are you on that Snap face?
No,
I'm
Snap,
just kidding.
Chapsnat.
Chapsnat?
Yeah, no, not at all.
I'm actually,
I'm on the new one, Parler, which is the new free speech one.
Oh yeah. I wanted
that's-
to. We'll talk about that later
Yeah.
because I did put that in our show notes at some point here, about Parlor. Actually, no, it's up. It's on. So yeah, we're on target for that. So
for
Parlor
yeah.
is,
Yeah.
I would say that it's a competitor to Gab. Have you heard of Gab?
No.
So Gab was where.
They come on the new one every week.
Well, Gab's not new.
Oh, okay.
Gab was way before Parlor.
Okay.
And or is it Parlor or Parser?
No, it's Parler.
Parler?
It's Parler.
Yeah.
Parler. Yeah.
It's supposed to be pronounced like parlay, like the French word. I was reading because
really?
when you told me about it, because it's supposed to be.
Oh.
Because what?
It didn't have a silent T on the end.
No, it didn't.
Oh, okay.
No, but the guy who invented it or whatever.
Yeah.
His idea was to make it be a place of conversation. Parlay,
Yes.
which is what parlay was. When if you've seen the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Movies, they say parlay. I invoke parlay.
Yeah.
That means that you would get audience with the captain of the ship.
That's
they
right.
wouldn't kill you, and then you'd get to plead your case and stuff like that. So I thought it was interesting, but more so was that a lot of people that have been deplatformed from like YouTube, Twitter, or any other social media, they went to this not parlay or Parlor, they went to Gab.
Mhm.
And so then Gab became this tool that later on, even though its intention wasn't to be like far right, it became far right.
Yeah.
So it became like opposite Twitter.
Well, that's what's happening right now on this platform. There's lots of conservative people just blowing up the feed.
Yeah.
So that's what's on there right now. I do hope it diversifies a bit. I would like.
That's
to see
the only saving grace for it. I mean,
it's its own echo chamber right now.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I
yeah.
saw that because it actually says, "Do you want to echo this instead of retweet
or upvote?" Yeah, you can
upvote or echo. So it's kind of taking like bits of Gab and bits of Reddit, and integrating those kinds of elements. And so I was interesting. It's like, do you want to echo this sentiment? You know, and I was like, I started following a couple of conservatives that I think are kind of balanced.
Which that's all that's on there right now. By the way, if you're going to go there, you're not.
But even there was even a person, a really extreme leftist that was banned off of Twitter. That was on there. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't expect to see them.
So they're true to their word then. Free speech.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, because this person doesn't have another platform.
Yeah.
I think they're on Gab too, but they're probably crucified on Gab because you have a lot of the alt-right people on there. And
Which is something maybe you don't want in a sense. But here's the thing: they are acting like the utility company in that sense. Then,
Mhm.
well, all the stuff with Ted Cruz, those recent hearings, um, he's like, are you a utility company or are you not the utility company? Like, are you going to take active roles in blocking people and
Yeah.
because I can't remember what the law was or what the protections were set up for them. Because if you're going to start taking responsibility for this, then we'll start holding you
Now
responsible
we're
for it.
talking about censorship,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Censorship and what role does that, and I think that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why um I don't know, that's where I get kind of confused with the
Mhm.
role of the government. Obviously, we've been switching tides from the right to the left for the last 16 years,
Yep.
and right now it's
I'm
really
dreading 2020 election cycle. My
it's
gosh.
really like
Sorry.
that's a different
Yeah.
conversation. But we like one of the things that really irked me was the net neutrality law.
Mhm.
Because I want to say the Democrats wanted to treat it like a utility, regulate it like a utility,
Okay.
but
Just talking about speeds and stuff, right?
access to speeds, like
Yeah,
not
access
not
speeds. Yeah.
like
I'm trying to
like
remember.
the bigger the
Yeah.
company or whatever, or certain companies, depending on who they're in bed with, um, figuratively, they
Mhm.
would they would limit access. Like a lot of these
Yeah.
companies wanted to
Speed. Yeah.
charge Netflix more, and they're saying they're well within their right. Well, not necessarily, because if you treat it like a utility, it's whoever the people want to access more, not whoever you choose to access.
And
So
I guess on the other side, do you think that you're infringing on our rights to do what we want to do, like be a,
yeah,
charge what we want to charge? And so they felt like I think that was probably and obviously it's not profitable for them either because they had strategies. Like if
it's they're
yeah
trying the strategies though. Strategies
yeah
are really to they Neil and I were talking about this the other day, and we're
yeah
talking about how free market societies encourage innovation, and
mhm.
and
They
and
do
Naval was talking about the same exact thing.
yeah
But when crony capitalism comes into play, like
hmm
there's free market capitalism and then there's crony capitalism, and the thing like with net neutrality, that to me was like crony capitalism. It's like what you're doing is you're trying to give these major companies, these ISPs, these internet service
yeah
providers, the right to deny or to charge more to somebody that is just on the lane. It's like it's like a toll road,
hmm
but if you're in a Mercedes, you're going to get charged more,
yeah
you
because
know?
this is a forward lane.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah,
Ford lane, and
yeah.
I don't
So
like that. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's like
no,
that's not free market anymore. That's more.
well, it's still free market, I guess, in the sense, but they're just using whatever leverage they can get their hands on,
Mhm.
to stay competitive. And I guess it's not a bad thing, quote unquote, like morally necessarily, but it's kind of like I would say like it doesn't really help things. It's one of those things where profits your kind of your only motive kind of
Mhm.
decision. And I get it, you just have to stay competitive, but I mean there are some I think some moral thing about capitalism is, and I was watching your and Neil's conversation. I think capitalism's Achilles heel is like a good moral compass and like ethics. If you don't have those good, like if you don't have a good set of those, it's going to fall apart. You're going to get the crony thing going on, the crony
Mhm.
capitalism. And then the same thing with socialism. You get put too much power in the hands of too few or the government, and then they do a great job of everything. So anyways, but in other words, is the power's in too few hands, and it's just too darn tempting to want to try to control everybody and everything. So you kind of have a ditch on either side of the road is the problem. You just want to
Yeah.
try to avoid that ditch as much as possible. Whichever side you're on. Socialism could work, I guess. They said, well, it could technically work. I'm like, yeah, but then you got human beings, so there's that problem.
Yeah, that's I
They're gonna do
think
what they're gonna do. So
yeah, I remember in
yeah.
one of my government classes,
So
like the professor said,
yeah,
capitalism works on paper. On
yeah. It
paper,
all
it
works
works.
on paper. Yeah.
Everything works on paper, right? It works on paper,
Yeah.
but or communism. Did I say capitalism or communism?
Capitalism. Yeah.
Communism works on paper. And I'm like, well, on paper, yeah, you're right. But
Yeah.
because what you're talking about is you're talking about diversifying resources
Yeah.
and properly allocating so that people don't run out from this section and everything like that.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, but in the end,
Yeah.
it you have people involved that you have greed, corruption,
Mm.
uh, you have people with big hearts, people with small hearts, and you have all types of people, and
Yeah.
that's why humans don't fit. Communism might work as a government, but
Mm.
people don't work in communism.
Yeah.
Us as people, we're made to, to be creative. That was one thing that Naval's podcast is really,
Yeah.
really amazing because he talked about the coming um, automation
Mm.
age where everybody's, I mean, we're talking about self-driving vehicles, so we're no longer
Yeah.
going to have the trucking industry. Talking about manufacturing, which has already seen a huge disruption by automation and
Yeah.
robotics, cars and things like that, electronic vehicles, and all these different forms of innovations. And
Yeah.
he asked um, the host, it was Joe Rogan. He asked, he says, what's the solution? And he goes, I said there's no worry for it. You don't need to worry about it because it's a non-issue. He said from the very onset of human society,
Mm.
he says we've always had innovation. He says it's not like we have a finite number of jobs that are to be distributed.
Yeah.
Like now we have computers and technology. Well, when it was invented, now we have computer technicians
Yeah.
and coders and things like that. So whatever happens with the automation sector, I think that things will start to spawn out of that. I remember that
Oh,
movie.
there's going to be disruption. Trust me on that. Like I know it says not to worry about it. Yes, in the long term, not worry about it, but there will be short term disruption. That's going to be painful. I
Well,
mean,
let's
that's
talk
part of
about
it.
this.
Yeah.
Let's just think tank for a second
Yeah.
and post your comments below if you want and share. But what do you think are some jobs? I'll start off. What do you think are some jobs that will come from automation? Like jobs that humans can do. I think one of them is
Mm.
maintenance. Maintenance is going to be a huge
Maintain the machine.
maintaining the machines. That's a huge
Yeah.
that's going to be a huge job right now. Well, I don't know. Could they just? I mean, I think maintenance is one.
Could be
Maintenance is
maintenance. There could be other industries that pop up because of automation.
uh-huh.
That we haven't thought of yet. That's a possibility.
Think of one.
Let me tell you something.
Use your deductive skills that I touted about in the
I,
beginning.
I can't really tell you what might happen, but I can tell you a way to think about it. So I'm listening to a new book on Audible, not a book, but it's a actual lecture, a course on Audible called Understanding Complexity, and it's about 6 hours long, and it's one of those courses that will make your brain hurt when you listen to it. So it's like heavy lifting for your brain. But he talks about in this course, I'm trying to remember the professor's name right now. It's on my phone out there, but he talks about uh, how things in general are complex. Every kind of system you can think of, scientifically, biologically, economically, politically, and there's this way to take complexity and think about complexity just in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about innovation, right? Well, capitalism allows for innovation because you have all these um, things available that you can try. Like your free market allows you to create
Like
all kinds of
I can
different
start this
solutions.
podcast
Yeah,
without anybody telling me no.
or you can make your own microphone.
Okay.
Different kind of microphone.
Yeah.
So he equated. You'll like this. He equated it to Legos. And he says,
Why are you saying I'd like that one?
Well, I don't know.
The
I'm scared.
Legos.
Yeah, just looking around. Anyways, he said that in a non-diverse place, he says not like kind of superficial diversity in a sense, but he's like, and he said if you had a basket with a bunch of oranges, pears, and apples, that there's diversity, but they're all kind of similar things. He goes, what if you had a thing full of tables, elephants, and cars, or something like that? And he's like, there's like he was talking about it mathematically too, and he said that there's a lot of diversity in this bowl. There was in the other one too, but this is an order of different magnitude. And there was like, imagine having like only 3 different colored Legos, and they were all like 2x2 Legos.
Yeah.
That was it. That's all you had to build with. It was like red, white, and blue, and this is the only size you had.
Okay.
It was not very diverse, so you don't get a lot of innovation out of that or a lot of diversity because there's not a whole lot to pull from. And I think that's what capitalism does. You let a lot of people be creative and kind of do their own thing and solve problems in different ways, and you get like all these different cool innovations and things happening. And when you lock it down in a communist to me in a communist society. I'm not trying to bash communism or whatever. I'm just saying
No, it's
that
okay to bash communism.
objectively, I mean, people that might be offended. Oh, I just want to say.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I think that it locks down that creativity, like you talk about. Like everybody gets paid the same thing. They want to make one size of pan or pot.
Oh yeah.
Like
what Neil was talking about.
what Neil was talking about. So you don't get a lot of innovation because there's no reason for it in a sense. Like there's not an environment conducive to that kind of thing. And so, understanding complexity will make your brain hurt, and it tells you about interdependencies between things, how things are complex, why they're complex. Uh, he said he broke it down to 4 knobs you can dial like on a complexity machine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember what the 4 dials are. It's I have to keep going back to listen to it. This is how deep this information is. But he tells you can turn everything all the way up and you get gray mush, but he goes complexity somewhere in the middle.
Fine tuning and stuff.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
it's like somewhere.
And would it be individual? Like everybody has their own complexity machine?
No, it's more like just kind of like if you had a complexity machine that could change the environment, like our environment, say.
Okay.
And you could just turn the dials. Like how complex would you like to make this? And you could just turn all these dials, and it will tell you. I don't want to give too much away because it's a really good course. And you could see what would happen. He goes, it's somewhere in the middle. All those dials are somewhere like around 12 o'clock. 0 to all the way up.
Yeah.
He goes, it's somewhere in the middle. You're going to find this really dense complexity, and because it's complex, it's robust. This is a good thing. And he said that it's one of those things where it helps you. I would say it's like a mental mechanism. If you listen, I'm only 2 hours in. I'm like my brain's already coming out of my ears, and but it's good because it helps you understand. It makes you a 3-dimensional thinker. That's what it does. If it does anything, it will make you think in 3 dimensions. The one-liner things from politicians and Facebook posts will go like, you'll just go like, oh, that's not helpful, or that's just not. What's the point of that? Saying that,
Yeah.
So, and this is what bothers me about the political landscape right now. It bothers me because I hear a lot of one-dimensional statements coming out of people's mouths. And it's like, no, it's not that simple. It's very complex. We have to think about this thing from all different angles and how it interconnects and how it's interdependent with other things.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy also said in the course, this is like a dancing landscape. He says the peaks are solutions, but your landscape can do this. It can dance as things change, interdependencies change. So you can't just go, oh, this is it. This is the solution. This is the solution. For how long?
Yeah.
In what context? So I don't hear a lot of that coming from politicians, and what bothers me a lot.
So I think that one thing that we don't see a lot of.
Yeah.
And the thing that it's the thing that ruins it 99.9% of the time is it's people with greed.
Mm-hmm.
People with, power trips and things like that. And
Yeah.
We're both, church going folk and
Bad
stuff like
motivation.
that.
Yeah.
And you and I both go to church and things of that nature.
Yeah.
How much do I look at like the core Christian values which we're supposed to adhere to, integrity and morality and ethic and things like that play into society. I think there's not a lot of I always go back to this idea of ego dissolution, like not denying myself, because I always have to make sure that I have self-care and things like that, and making sure that I'm taking care of me and mine and stuff.
Right.
But how much would you say that your Christian values affects how you hustle out in the secular world, I guess?
It affects everything.
It affects everything
at your core level, and that's the problem I think people have right now. Like they have so many laws and social programs and everything else because nobody's taking care of the core problem, which is you, the person. We're trying to make these external changes to an internal problem. It's going to try to control behavior, kind of like if you're talking about audio, like a compressor trying to control, transient bad behavior. But like it's only going to work so long, because you're just trying to change people from the outside, not the inside. And they need to start focusing here. Well, politicians can't mandate that you work on yourself internally. Nobody can. I mean, you have to do that on your own. So I don't like the fact that do you have Facebook up right now?
Yeah, I have it up.
I just made a post. Tell me what you think about that post. It's pretty short to read.
Okay, give me a second.
It goes right along these lines. I thought about it today. I don't have my phone. I'd read it for you, and that's why I'm asking you to look it up. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
So
we're gonna we'll probably just edit that out real quick.
Yeah.
Just look it up. You said some.
It's like the last post I made, so it's like right there. Should be right there at the top of my feed.
All right. Is that the one that, hey, not a bad idea?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's
So
see.
when you're talking about Christian values, I made that post on Facebook, and I was just thinking about, hey, what if we did that, like more, you know? So
Mhm.
there's like I asked some questions, and there's like a scripture about at the bottom that kind of backs it up. So
Okay, I'm trying to load it up here. So just give
loading,
all
loading.
these. I'll probably cut this whole section out right
Okay.
here where I'm searching for it. It's just asking me to sign in. So let me,
Oh, that's
let me
right.
show here.
Yeah.
I don't think I can.
Annihilation.
Okay. Let me see here. Not a big deal because I could just pull it up like this.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
All right, so I got it here, pulled it up,
Yep.
and go ahead and I'll read it real quick, and
Yeah,
then
go
you
ahead.
can pause it or pause me. And it says, "Hey, not a bad idea, eh? Wonder how many social programs we would need if everyone was raised to do this." Oh yeah, this was the I remember reading this.
Yeah.
Raised to do this. Ooh, and how much innovation we would have. Would everyone find purpose? Perhaps would we live in a safer, healthier society as a result? I wonder. So many implications. And you did hashtag scripture is a mind expander, and the scriptures that
Yeah.
you quoted were from 1 Peter 4:8 through 10. It says, most important of all, continue to show deep love for each other, for love covers a multitude of sins. Cheerfully share your home. Ooh, hello.
Yeah.
Cheerfully share your home with those who need a meal or a place to stay. God has given each of you a gift from his great variety of spiritual gifts. Use them well to serve one another. This is where a lot of people that automatically just like default to hate the scripture,
Yeah.
you know, they won't find this nugget. They won't
Yeah.
find this nugget because
No.
automatically have already dismissed it. And this is a good good advice.
You're talking about like 3 lines could change everything
Uh-huh.
out of an entire book of things.
Especially when
Yeah.
we're talking about hustling and we're
Yeah.
talking about the overarching theme is verse 10.
Yeah.
God has given each of you a gift from his great variety of spiritual gifts. Use them well to serve one another. So
And what is starting a business? Solving other people's problems. Right?
that's exactly what a business is,
Yeah.
is learning how to solve other people's problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scripture is a mind expander. Actually, that was the first hashtag ever like that. So I started that one.
Okay.
I'm the originator. Scripture is a mind expander. I come from John Lennox too. John Lennox is an apologist on the Ravi Zacharias team.
Uh-huh.
He says, "Hey, that first time I encountered Scripture and God, it was a mind expanding experience. It wasn't what everybody says it should be as a closed minded, bigoted thing. He's like, no, that was mind expanding. I don't take that position at all.
Yeah.
When my father first gave it to me, and the scriptures and stuff, he's like, this there was stuff in there. It's like, wow, that's a solution. That's something we can use.
It is.
The scripture's chock full of that stuff. So
Yeah, and that's where we go back to the self thing. Like
yeah,
I try to be selfless as much as possible.
Yeah.
I'll be frank, man. I don't succeed
No.
nearly as much as I should.
but the point is you're trying.
The point
Some
is that
people
it's
don't try
there.
at all. They just do
Yeah.
whatever.
And those
Yeah.
are I would say that those are the people that probably, well, I wouldn't say that they're the ones that complain the most, but I don't know. It's just like sometimes they don't know how to focus their energies, and so they end up turning them into something that's not fruitful for society.
They can't.
You know,
I know.
I'm all for the
yeah.
power of assembly.
Mhm.
It's one of our core, Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important.
Mhm.
It's funny how some of these extreme left people talk about, the dissolution of the Constitution, but yet they're the first ones to use all of their amendments, all of their rights. When we talk about First Amendment rights and things like that, talk about freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, freedom to gather, and things like that.
So to you and me are people that are reasonably intelligent. We see them going down this track. Okay, and I'm not saying. I want to be careful not to insult anybody because this is not an insulting thing to say. I'm not trying to insult anyone. But the Democratic Party agenda is going in this direction that I just don't see that's very useful, and it really has a real potential to crash America into the ground. and it's not coming from a place of I hate leftist people. It's coming from a place of just objective, logical assessment. Like I see where this is sort of going, and I don't like the way it's going because I think it's going to run into something to the ground. Now, I'm not Einstein. I don't have I'm not a scientist or anything, but I can just kind of put two and two together
Mhm.
and go, well, this is sort of where it's heading, and that's not good.
Yeah.
It's not because of I'm a hater. It's because I just look at it logically, like in the way I'm talking about with looking at understanding complexity, like a course like that, and just kind of think of it in a very, very 3-dimensional way and going, I don't know about this.
Yeah,
This could be some serious problems down the road. I'm not saying that the right doesn't have its issues either. Let's be frank, but I feel like the left at this point could crash us into the ground quicker than the right could.
There's a popular video by Jordan Peterson where he's giving a lecture, and this is, I think, before he blew up.
Yeah.
And people were talking because he was at a liberal university before he became this popular speaker.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, or they were talking about, the different types of governments. And everybody talks about Marxism and socialism and communism and all these different types of government, that have existed in the last 200 years and whatnot. Dictatorships, tyrannies, and republics and democracies, and which one works well, which one doesn't. But he was specifically mentioning the really left-wing ones, and even the fascist ones, which are all the way extreme to the right. So extreme to the left is you have communism and socialism. Extreme to that right, you have tyrannies and fascism and things like that, nationalism, things like that. And he said, what makes you think? He says, okay, you're saying that they're going to work, and this is just a point of fact, not a question or anything like that. He said, what makes you think that you're going to be any better than the several thousand people that have gone before you to try to attempt to make that a successful government? He says, because as soon as you have a taste for that power, he says, as soon as anybody does, he says, as soon as they get a taste, a little inkling of that taste, and I'm badly paraphrasing, he says, you start to go awry. You start to go to the direction that you said you weren't going to go. He says, because that's the nature of human psychology, is once you taste that power, once you taste that little bit of tyranny, or once you taste that little bit of
balances,
once you taste that little bit of whatever each thing gives you once you're at the top, you start to sway towards the extreme. And I think that's one thing that made our Constitution such a huge, remarkable document, in that they
tried something new.
They did something completely different.
Yeah.
And they made it odd. They gave it 3 branches instead of 4, because then you could imagine, an even split of branches as far as leaning towards a certain ideology or policy. But they made it 3, and they made themselves checks and balances. The executive, executes the laws that the legislative branch does, and now we have.
I think that's why smart people in the room get upset, like Jordan Peterson. They go, why do you want to do that? They're like, well, because all this,
because it works.
Like, this has already been tried before.
Yeah,
you do realize this. And that's pattern recognition.
Several times.
He went back into history and recalled information, and looked at, well, that didn't work out before. What do you think is going to make it work now?
Yeah.
Well, things are different. What's different? We're not different. Technology's different. Now, I'll give you that. Now, technology is a way to exert control over people. You can use it to exert control over people, like in your second episode, when you and Neil Don were talking about. You can use technology. It can be convenient. It can be helpful, but it can also be. You can use the tool, but when the tool starts to use you, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So, like Google or Facebook, it's a good tool. Like when I go on to go shopping for something, I'll use Google. But I want to go search something that I'm interested in. Sometimes I'll use DuckDuckGo, because I don't get. It's not logged.
It doesn't track you.
It doesn't track me.
Okay.
But I use Google for what it's used for, and that's to look up good deals and directions to things. I don't use Google to inform myself in a political way. I do that. I don't want them to censor or to adjust what I'm searching for. I don't want anything to do that. So I like Google and I like Facebook because they're good tools, but I don't like the fact that the tools are trying to use me at the same time. Like that to me is a little weird.
Yeah.
I don't think that's helpful, So
how can you leverage?
Yeah.
How can you? Because there's hundreds of, if not thousands upon thousands of videos out there that teach you how to do be the next this, be the next that, and how to, and as much as information as I have, I'll try to give. But this is a simple conversation. How do you personally? How do you leverage your experience and what you know to help propagate you and your family and make sure that you're? I don't even know if that's the right question. Like, are there tools that you take advantage of to help move you to like your networking skills, or is there anything like that that you use to, to advance your hustle? I guess you could say.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple of them.
All right, all
And
right.
then most of them are online tools. These are stuff you can do at home. I
I'm gonna
use
write these down.
pluralsight.com, which is very much like lynda.com, which I know is very popular on lots of college campuses now, actually. So that's lynda.com. Pluralsight's just like it sounds, pluralsight.com. That's for like IT and programming. Lynda has everything. You've used Lynda in college, so
Mm-hmm.
it has almost everything under the sun. That's very good courses, very well put together courses. And they also cost like 30 bucks a month or so, but you can reteach yourself at home just watching videos.
Yeah.
Like me and my buddy at work, when I first came to where I'm working now, um, we had to stand up a hyper V environment, like a virtual environment for servers. I learned in 2 weeks on Pluralsight
Mm-hmm.
how to spin up my own
I was telling somebody the other
virtual
day, I
environment,
was having a conversation with
for
them,
servers.
having a conversation about that,
Yeah,
about like what do they like,
yeah.
and this person told me that they're just so interested in the brain, and they're like, but I could never go to school to be a brain surgeon or anything
That
like
might be
that.
changing soon. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
actually, there's a website called Khan Academy,
Hmm.
and it started out,
I've heard of that. Yeah.
yeah, and it's free.
Mm.
Khan Academy, it might be .org. I'm not 100% sure,
I don't remember either.
but just Google it, you'll find it.
Yeah,
And they offer MIT level like courses.
yeah,
Like that was actually some of the first courses that they offered were these MIT courses that basically it was just the course lectures
yeah.
online, and then it just grew from there. I mean, Linda and
And Audible, like I'm using
Skillshare and
Audible right now to
is
listen to that
yeah,
great course or whatever it's called, great courses. Yeah,
and
yeah.
Skillshare and things like that. Those
Mm.
have some amazing like just courses that are already developed, but they're developed specifically for the platform. But what I
Yeah.
like about Khan Academy obviously is it's free,
Mm.
and so I went on there, and sure enough, there was a whole course from basic neurology all the way to advanced like brain surgery.
Yeah.
I was like, it would take you from the basics. Is basically essentially like 6 years of courses that you could go through if you wanted to, and to
Yeah.
understand. And I was like, this is amazing. Like,
I mean, there's a part that you're missing. I think some information and some things can be translated that through online learning like that, but some things you have to have hands on.
well, yeah, of course, you're not going to be like
Yeah.
you don't.
Nobody's gonna let you operate on your
Yeah,
body
exactly.
after watching videos.
from
It's not
from
happening.
watching
Not
videos.
happening. So
Yeah. I think
so,
though with the advent of high speed internet and it
mm,
being, I think it's something, the proliferation of high speed internet is really high. It's beyond 60%, I'm sure,
mm,
across the country,
yeah,
that eventually university, I mean every major university now offers
yeah,
online schooling or e degrees. And for a while there, I would say from like the mid 2000s until like the early 2010s, an e-degree was kind of frowned upon. It's like,
I think it depends on what field it's in. Because like for
but
IT,
even
it
generally,
doesn't matter.
yeah,
Really where you get it.
or business
Like
admin or anything like that.
yeah, there's some things you need to be there for. I would. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The cool thing of the school that I went to, they sent you a package of actual physical package of gear, which included lighting, camera,
Yeah.
editing rig. I mean everything, microphones, and they sent you what was called a launch box.
Mm.
And I think in time everything's gonna be like
The
that.
conservatory doing that too now. They got
Yeah,
the
they
Watchbox kind of thing.
they
Yeah.
do they because that sets you up not just with the cool tools,
Yeah.
but they set you up with a really cool course schedule.
Yeah.
And so, all right, what about personally? Is there anything in your life that you specifically like? Is there a core value that you like? I think one thing, I'll tell on you a little bit. You're persistent. Okay, I think your
Yeah.
persistence.
I'm persistent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I would
think
say that sometimes it bothers me because it's
to a
like
fault. You
I.
think you're not persistent to a fault
I
though?
wouldn't say persistent to a fault, but sometimes I can really bang my head against the wall for a long time, and it's a painful experience. But I'm willing to go through the experience to get what I need out of it.
I've
So
talked to my sister, and
yeah.
I think the one thing that I think I self-loathed in my past too much.
Mm.
like me personally, I would um I would just dwell on the things that I didn't have growing up,
Mm,
and I'd use those as crutches.
yeah.
Not excuses, but in my head
Yeah.
they were crutches.
Makes
I don't
sense.
go
Yeah.
around saying, "Well, my dad did so and so,"
Yeah.
or "My mom." No, I don't go around saying anything like that. But in my head, they were mental crutches. They were mental
Yeah.
crutches, and that's one of the things that I've absorbed over this career transition,
Mm,
over the last 8 weeks or whatever.
yeah.
Transitioning from a nonprofit organization into something secular,
Yeah.
and just really just a frankly a 180-degree career transition, not necessarily in my field, but just trying to find something that I can just hustle in.
Yeah.
And so I've been absorbing a lot of like just um, non-conventional, hustle wisdom.
Mm.
One of my favorite guys that I personally like, and he's not safe for work because he cusses a lot, is Gary Vaynerchuk. You ever heard of Gary Vaynerchuk?
No, but I know I know the kind of people you're talking about. I listened to a real estate like mogul.
Yeah.
He's someone who's really good at selling houses and has kind of worked his way up. And he had some really good systems on how to handle your money as
Hmm.
it would come in as a real estate agent. And I was like, hey, that's pretty good stuff. Like I could use that at home.
Yeah.
It was talking about for jobs, like incomes where you have a bunch of income and you have nothing. Like a dry season, you get a whole bunch more. He's like, this
Yeah.
is how you do this. He was kind of a little mouthy though, like
Yeah.
he was spot on his logic. I was like, well, that's really good stuff. I don't like the cuss words, but I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So
Let me show you
yeah,
this real quick. I don't know necessarily if we can show it. Um, but we'll talk about it. We're gonna show it offline, and then we'll come right back and
okay,
see what you think of this. Pause.
okay,
All right, so we just came back from a curse fest by Gary V. He talked essentially about not hearing things, like not hearing. I guess what I took from that is not hearing the noise, the naysayers,
yeah,
and things like that. I think like we look at government, we look, and again, we're not going to go back into this the cards that we were dealt in life, like where you were born, what ethnicity, and things like that.
mm,
That aside, because I know that does have some sort of impact, but that aside, like Naval Ravikant, when he was talking, he doesn't care about his position, how he was born poor, or how he was born brown, or he doesn't care about that. He wants to find a solution regardless of whether or not people believe in his solution or believe in his position.
yeah. And this is there's a couple people in my life I know like this right now. It's very frustrating because I see that they're very talented. They're very talented. They have a lot that they can offer the world, but they can't get out of their own way. That's the phrase I use. Can't get out of your own way. Like get out of your own way.
Hmm.
Like it's. I see a lot of potential in people, but they'll sit there, like they have like imaginary chains on, and they won't move. I know what that feels like. I
Yeah.
totally get that, but you have to go. Okay, well, I'm this. I'm 30 years old, or 28, like you said in the video, or whatever, 50, and I still don't have things figured out the way I want them. Okay, so what's stopping you from doing it tomorrow, though?
Yeah.
You know, like it's okay. Like I know people, like he was saying, don't let these big macro, what he called macro themes, or these societal like expectations get on you, or don't bend to those. Just do what you're going to do, what you need to do to get where you need to go.
And that's exactly
Yeah,
why we started. That's exactly how I started
yeah,
this. Like I was waiting for everything to work.
yeah,
This needs to work perfectly before I can start.
yeah,
Or these two areas of my table, they need to be completely cleaned off, and
yeah,
everything needs to look, I had all these polished ideas in my head of how I wanted things to work,
yeah.
but that wasn't what was holding me up.
But
What
you
was
had an
holding me.
idea,
Yeah.
but then you were just trying to figure out how to. Well, you started fleshing it out, and like I think people, there might be some anxiety. I think it comes with that. For me, it does. For my
Definitely.
personality type, there's a lot of anxiety
Definitely.
because I'm the same way. I want things to be perfect
Uh-huh.
before I execute. But sometimes it's just not. Sometimes you can execute without it being necessarily perfect or have everything, all your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
Like somebody that can go get a $300 laptop from Best Buy and watch some plural site learner.com videos. They can probably change a lot of things about themselves or learn new skills,
Yeah.
go into a different career field of some sort, or start anyway. Like, there's you can do things, and people are going to tell you can, or you're too old, or you at 30 or 40, 50 years old, it's too late. You're never going to make. You're not going to make enough money to retire. Blah 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 blah. Well, that's only true if you let it be true. And that's for me. And it goes. I'm preaching to myself too. There's a lot in life I've been trying to figure out, and it's taken me a while. But I figured it out. And sometimes I do the self-loathing thing. Well, man, that took a long time to figure out. But at least I did. At least I'm trying. At least I'm trying to get there. I'm getting there, not as fast as I want to get there sometimes, but I'm getting there. I'm learning something different every year. I'm trying to reinvent myself, try to go forward. And sometimes it takes people longer than others for whatever reason. You can cite circumstances or environments or whatever, but the point is you push forward.
Yeah.
And that's the persistence, I guess. There's some things I really didn't like about myself and about my situation. I said, well, this really stinks. And I sat in this place where this really stinks, and I don't have this, and I don't have that, and what am I going to do? And it's like, well, sitting here talking about how bad things are or what I should have done is, I guess, helpful in a sense. I can take note of it, but I mean, now what do I do to go forward? And I think the first thing you should do to get out of your own way is make a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is
like
what's
write
happening.
it down.
Yeah, this is what's happening. You write down, or like I have a mental chalkboard. I always tell you about my mental chalkboard. I got a bunch of stuff.
I
out
remember.
there. But anyways, I go, okay, well, this is what I have to do to go forward. And I've tried some things, and I've been very frustrated. Like, I didn't get the result I was wanting. But I'm going to myself, well, at least I attempted something. Now I have to just learn from where I did things and go the way I planned or the way I wanted them to. I didn't get the result I wanted, but at least that doesn't work.
Let's do something practical though. Let's do something practical. Like, that's a really great point.
Yeah.
Like, the one thing that I started to do is I created several different in my notes app. Is I created several different lists. One that has guests.
Yeah.
One has show notes, which is what I type in all my stuff in so that I can have something to talk about with my guests. Another one is like a social media template, kind of like, okay, these are the kinds of ideas and tags that I've used in the past. So I think there's something very poignant in the nugget, that's the scriptural nugget that says, write the vision down, make it plain.
Yeah.
So that when people see it, they can run with it. And I think, not to knock your mental chalkboard, but the one thing that helped me like develop this podcast was I wrote it down.
Yeah.
I literally wrote it down. I said, or I typed it out. There's some people that will argue the power of actually writing it physically with your own
Semantics.
hand.
Yeah.
But the idea that it is visible to my eye is what motivates me. So like we were trying to schedule a time for this podcast, and I was like, okay, well, I started contacting people I have another list that's nothing but just guests, potential guests, wish list guests, people that have said yes that are going to come on. And so I'm like, okay, if Carson can't make it, what can I do? And I already had, 2 or 3 people that I could almost immediately call and say, hey, let's, but obviously I'm glad that you came on. So I think that's one thing that people can do is the first step to anything is I think you have to write it down so that your eye can physically see
and make
it.
your first step a small step.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be big.
Like
just make the note.
Yeah,
just write it down.
Yeah, write it down and then go, well, I want to go to learn something new and get out of this job. I hate this job. I want to do something else. Okay. Well, sit down and think about what you would like to do.
One of my mentors that I saw.
And then find something you like to do. And then buy your $300 laptop from Best Buy so you can learn how to do that.
Yeah.
It's just one thing after another. You don't have to be like, because the problem is that people think about they got to get from here to here in like light speed. No, you don't. You just, that's kind of how it looks. This is really frustrating, but
I heard somebody say about a filmmaker that they were it was something silly. It was because they had a breakout role as far as directing. And he said, well, what made you an overnight success? And he said, well, it's the 20 years I spent before I actually got my big break.
Yeah.
He says, so he basically says, so I'm a 20-year overnight success.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're just now hearing about it, like the look of this podcast. And sure, I'm tweaking some things on the back end, but what I have and what you see.
That Sentinel staring at me right now.
Yeah,
that's freaking me out.
The Matrix, the Matrix Sentinel.
Yeah.
All of these things didn't just happen. I just didn't decide one month to say, oh, I'm going to start a podcast next week because I can. It's years of audio experience. It's years, and so it's a culmination. But the thing is that when I finally actually, because I could have done this 5 years ago, Would it have been as good? Who knows? I don't know.
No, no.
But
telling, yeah.
I've been thinking about this for years. We've talked about having a podcast for years when we were at work. In
Oh, speaking of work, this reminded me of a story. I kind of thought about today earlier
Okay.
too. We were sitting there talking one day about something, religion or politics or something. We're sitting in a booth just going back and forth. This is like after like
it was
we're
a
at
rehearsal,
church.
right?
Yeah, we're at church, and it was like after a Sunday service had gone, and we're just sitting there talking in a booth, just going back and forth. And we look over to the left, and we have like three
Oh yeah, that's
young
right.
guys listening, like sitting there staring at us. I'm looking all left, and go like, "Hey, what's up?"
Yeah,
And you're like,
that's
we
right.
were kind of looking at him like,
That's right. That was like late last year,
so
I
what,
think.
so what are you guys doing? They're like, "Oh, we were just listening."
We're just listening.
I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh."
Yeah, because you and I were talking.
Yeah.
We were talking politics and we were talking government. This is when
yeah.
I had
We're going like
different-
real deep in the weeds, and they're sitting there just staring like this, like looking at us.
Whoa, yeah.
And I was like, and not that they were just like, they were just sitting there just and just listening to the conversation, just ingesting information, and I just totally did not know they were there.
Yeah.
It just kind of freaked me out. Not to say they were creepy or anything. I'm just saying like I didn't realize they were there, and I looked over like, oh, hi,
Yeah.
hello. You know?
Yeah, exactly. That was
So-
I remember that. That was really interesting.
Yeah.
And so it just tells you the power of conversation. But I think one thing is make sure that you
You have a text message.
let's see here. Yeah, we do. Okay. We'll need to wind down here in a second.
Oh no problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I
need to
think we're
wind
up
down in a
at
second.
close to
But
an
we
hour,
are
so-
winding down. I think
Yeah.
the first step to finding your hustle is write it down.
Yeah.
Write it down. Once you write it down, you're gonna see that things are gonna start to
Yeah.
you're gonna start to see things. Why is this going off? I'm gonna have to turn this off.
Oh.
You're gonna start to see you're gonna start to see the fruition of
Yeah.
of those desires. And so is there any other tips that you would say?
Yeah, just think about how you're going to get out of your own way. When it
Yeah.
comes to hustle stuff, just think about how you're going to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
Like make it a point. I see people get into these cycles, these self-destructive cycles or holding patterns, like infinite
Yeah.
holding patterns. They won't do anything. And just find a way to break out. If it's just a small thing, I don't know, go to like I don't know if they have somebody has like an open house at a company you want to work at someday, or I don't know, something. Just go look at something. I don't know. Get your mind
That's
out of
a
that.
great idea.
Go get your mind out of that place and just go. Try to imagine something different. At least, and go. Well, maybe I could. Maybe I can do this. Just give yourself like a half a shot. Give yourself half a shot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
See, so.
Well, that's good, man. That's
Yeah.
good. I want to continue talking. I'm just trying to keep the conversations to about an hour. I have I think I have like 4 or 5 more points that we didn't even touch on about being creative and stuff like that, because that's important to our role. So I'll make sure that I save that for a part 2. So maybe in a month or so like that, we'll
Yeah.
set up another session.
As long as people can, we're okay at staring at my face for an hour. Oh,
Yeah, I'm having
something good to say. I guess it's
I'm having a
hard to
tough
look
time.
at.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
need a
Put a bag on his head next time.
All right, Carson. So I'm gonna make sure that people click on your links, and if they need your services or your help, make sure that you click on the link below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and get hit that notification bell. But man, thank you, bro. You have a wealth of knowledge that I know that people will benefit from, and yeah, we'll go from there.
from it too.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool, man. All right, brother. Thank you.